What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Comics Grind. I'm one of your hosts, Nico Rodriguez.
And I'm Ken, aka Comic Ken on YouTube.
And thank you so much for joining us here again for another weekly discussion on comics. We are super excited because we have another fantastic guest. Really, he's the reason why this podcast exists in the first place. We'll kind of get to that
Yeah.
here in a little bit. But he is what I've dubbed Houston's ambassador of comics culture here in Houston, of fandom. He is a networking savant. He is the founder and organizer of Eastern Rim Comic Con in Baytown, Texas. He is the one, the only Mr. Jerry Shafer. What's going on, Jerry? How you doing,
Hey
man?
guys,
Thank you for joining
doing
us.
just fine,
What's
man.
up?
No, man, thank you for having me, man. What's up, Ken? What's up, Nico? Like I said, dude, you're very nice to say all that. I appreciate that greatly, and it puts a big old smile on my face. But I'm just a dude. I'm just a dude. But thank you, thank you, thank you.
The dude, not just a dude. You're
Oh,
the
dude.
dude.
No, I'm the in the movies. I'm the guy, leaning against the wall, in the background, like scratching my nose. I'm that guy. That's who I am.
So yeah, so what I was talking about there at the beginning, so Ken and I actually met at Eastern Rim Con
Yeah.
about 3 years ago now.
That was a
So,
while ago.
you
Yeah.
know, basically in essence, Jerry is the reason we met, therefore he's the reason this podcast even exists in the first place. So we thank you for that, Jerry. We thank you for
Well,
that
look,
very.
we always attempt to provide space for people to do their thing, and look, man, I appreciate that, but man, y'all are the ones who put the work in, who put the thought in the process. So I'm glad I was able to provide at least some sort of space. We were able to provide some sort of space, but y'all are the ones doing the hard work, man. Y'all are the ones out here grinding. So
Oh yeah.
kudos to y'all, please.
Nice, nice, nice.
Appreciate it.
Jerry, you've been doing the show. This is going on the fifth year, right? Or am I?
More, let me think. This is probably coming up more like our sixth year officially, because we had that COVID show where nobody came for some reason. And
Was that my first show? Was that the COVID? Was
no,
was
no,
that the one?
when I mean COVID show, I mean like COVID happened and we didn't have a
Oh, okay,
show.
okay.
Yeah, so nobody
Yeah, yeah,
came, not even the guests, not even us. It was
yeah.
just an
Gotcha.
empty
Okay.
gymnasium. But no, the first show was the one, I think, was it in the gym? Were y'all in the? Do you remember being in
Yeah,
the gym?
yeah.
Okay,
It was
Yeah.
that was
it was in the
yeah.
gym, and day one was awesome, but day two they had that massive wreck on
Well,
on the interstate.
so here's the
Yeah.
deal with that. That day, all roads to Baytown were closed. Uh,
Wow.
on I think I-10 was the only way to get there. 610 and Beltway 8, all that stuff was closed down, like closed down. The
Yeah,
bridge was that only had was you could only come through the bridge as you were leaving Baytown. You couldn't enter through the bridge. And
right.
yeah, and the reason all that stuff happened on Sundays because there was like no joke at what I was told, at least 4 or 5 wrecks that occurred because everybody was
Wow.
coming in through I-10. So of course, since everyone's coming, there's going to be a higher level of issues that occurred. But yeah, man, for sure.
Dude, yeah, because I saw the
Like the
the
news?
the well, I saw the 18 wheeler that was like burnt to a literal crisp. It was like
Dang.
sitting there in the middle of the highway,
Mhm.
like just burnt to shreds. I was like, so I guess they had to like let it burn out. That's why it took so long or something.
Yeah,
Wow.
I got calls from like a whole bunch of people. Bedrock called me and they all were like, "Hey man, we're coming. It's really crazy." I was like, "Oh my god, yeah, thank you. Y'all be safe, please." But yeah,
Yeah,
dude, it was a nutty time for sure.
Yep.
yeah, that was wild, man. Talk a little bit about this year's show coming up. Where's
Yeah.
it going to be? When's it going to be? What kind of? I was telling you before the show, you're coming out with some bangers, as the kids say, in terms of guests, man. So what you got? What you got?
Okay, man. So let me break that down. Eastern Rim Funny Book and Vintage Con is going to happen at Goose Creek Memorial High School on August 19th and 20th. It's going to be on Saturday and Sunday. Saturday the 19th is from 10 to 6 for open doors to close, and on Sunday it's going to be from 11 to 4. We are, there you go, perfect. And it's going to be a fantastic show. We have a lot of really cool guests, as you said. We worked really hard to go and pick some folks up and get them interested in the show and willing to be a part of it. And it's just been, like I said, a really great journey to do for the show what we've always wanted to do. And yeah, let me go ahead and get into the guests. We were very lucky, super lucky, to be able to get some of the folks that we have. So I let me start off with we got Lobos, who is a terrific cover artist. Like, people like lose their minds over his stuff, and rightfully so. His stuff is terrific. And we really worked hard to get him. Actually, my friend Tony Wilson, and Tony.
Yeah, for sure.
He was the one who made contact with Lobos and was able to get him for the show, and we're so grateful to Tony for that. Also, we have Mike Grell, the legendary artist for Green Arrow, for Warlord, for John Sable, like all kinds of stuff. He's going to be there. Jay Lee, we were able to pick him up over at Heroes Con, and
huge,
that,
man.
Yeah, it's crazy.
I mean, I've seen our friend Ryan, who gets all the amazing commissions and everything. I think he's got like 3 or 4 commissions from Jay Lee, and they're just absolutely beautiful. I mean, it's insane.
Yeah. And he's the nicest guy, dude. He's just a plain-spoken gentleman. I sat and chatted with him for a while, explained what we were and what we were doing, and he was very interested. And I went and figured some stuff out about getting him, and he graciously accepted. And he's always so nice, and just like I said, just the nicest guy, dude. Just the nicest guy. Then after Jay Lee, we were able to get David Lloyd from the artist who basically put pencil to paper and form for V, the character from V for Vendetta, which is one of the greatest, in my opinion, one of the greatest comic books in all history. Not just in terms of the art and the writing, but in terms of how it restructured how we thought about comics. And Alan Moore's writing is like on 3 other levels beyond just what you read in an everyday comic book. And David Lloyd adding the beauty and the sedate yet distinct quality of art that was just gorgeous, just beautiful.
I mean, absolutely iconic. I mean,
yes.
That's kind of what Ken and I were talking about a little bit earlier. Like, to me, this is a huge deal. I mean, when you talk in like layman's terms, right? There's comic literature, there's regular kind of novel literature. You think of something like a Fahrenheit 451 or something.
Right.
This V for Vendetta is like on the caliber of that for comics. I mean, this is absolutely legendary, and it's honestly insane because David lives out of country, right?
Yeah, he lives in England.
Yeah. So I mean, like, this is an absolute once in a lifetime opportunity. At this point, it's awesome, dude. I can't wait.
I have people who have and these are all people out of state. They're contacting me from California and stuff, and I got a few people coming from there to come see him because, as far as I know, I think this is his only date in North America, as far as I know.
Wow.
And he's also very nice gentleman. I mean, I've talked to him on the phone one time, and I was all like, okay, David, before we talk about flights and stuff, let me say this, sir. The V for Vendetta, and I'm like I'm in my bedroom right now. I'm like literally looking at the book over here. There's my V for Vendetta book on my bookshelf that I wake up every morning and I look at. It says Alan Moore, it says David Lloyd, it says V for Vendetta. It's right there, right underneath all my Sandman books and stuff like that. And it's one of my key books. So when I talked to him, I was all like, okay, just let me say, sir, you really affected me and you meant a lot of things, all that stuff. I fanboyed out and I was like, okay, so enough of that nonsense, sir. Now let's go on to the business of what we have to discuss. And being British, he understood and he appreciated me being like, okay, this is the time to like, okay, cool. Now we're done. Here we go. And he, like I said, British guy, very, very British in the way he responds, but very unassuming, nice, wonderful gentleman. And I was, like I said, like I'm starting to freak out just a little bit. The fact that I actually talked to David Lloyd on the phone is that crazy,
right?
But,
Dude, no,
anyways,
and I guess that's kind of like that line you have to walk between being a real fan of the creators and then also being that businessman that has to like bring them in and court them, get them over to the show, and make sure it's like a good, hospitable place for them to be.
It's a very thin line. It's really thin. It's really thin.
Yeah, I mean,
yeah, and so to, like I said, just to be honest with you, dude, it's a dream come true. As let me give you a quick con director story, and this relates to Nick. The first show that he did with us, which was at Lee College before you and Isaac came. Ken.
You're talking about Nick Patera, right?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, well,
okay, right.
He's the only Nick we know,
just
right?
for the viewers to know.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. You got it. Yeah,
right.
yeah. I keep forgetting I'm not having just a regular conversation. My comic book nerd friends. No, Nick Patera for sure. And we love Nick. We love Nick at our show. Nick has done so much for us, and he's such a terrific guy. Like people stalk when he came and he taught the kids how to draw. People are still talking about that. They still talk to me about that. You know what I'm saying? Nice. So big shout out to Nick. But anyway, so as a con director, I'm sitting there at the end of the show. I'm holding a Frank Quietly piece of art, and the art is of Alan Moore, owned by Nick Patera, and the picture was taken by Rags Morales. Okay, wow. You can't put that word salad together any other way, and it's just a nutty thing to experience because I'm just like, is this how con directing life is like? Oh my God. And yes, it is. It's all these weird ironies. When I picked up Glenn Fabry that we had at our show last year from the airport, nice. We're driving and I asked him about, something like Preacher or whatever and his painted covers. And he goes, you want to know how I learned to paint? I'm like, yes, please. They had this paint by numbers thing. It's like a little book. And that's how I learned how to paint. I'm like, what? Paint by numbers? What? He goes, yeah, it was really easy, but it really taught me how to do it. I'm just like,
yeah,
well,
okay, some secret stuff that nobody, except con directors know as you're driving the guest, to go get a hamburger in America and then to the hotel. So yeah, dude, it's crazy. It's just crazy.
Yeah, I mean,
which actually,
go ahead, Ken.
Oh.
You're good.
Oh, I was about to say, that kind of begs the question, like, what brought you into being a con director in the first place?
Okay, so let me give you the spiel. I'll attempt to keep it short, but it probably won't happen.
So what it's for, man. It's what it's for.
Perfect. I'm an avid comic book nerd. Okay, and as I like to say now that I'm older, and have a couple of pounds on what I used to have as a kid. I'm a power nerd. We're all power nerds. Okay. And I've been collecting comics since here's my secret origin of the comic collector, I guess, to simplify it. So I was in my parents' car in the back seat because, that's where I lived when we went places. And I looked down and I don't know why, but there was a Saga of the Swamp Thing #1 on the floorboard. Written by Marty Pascow, and I can't think of the artist's name, but it's a really great guy. And I'm looking at the cover, and it's Swamp Thing, and he's leaning off of this big statue, and he's holding this little blonde-haired girl, and there's all these like circa 1984, or 82 or whatever. I think it was 82 when it came out. Like country folk with pitchforks and stuff coming for him, and I was like, "What's that?" That image was encapsulated in my mind, and so I would get the book and I would look at it. I don't know what they're saying, but it's weird or whatever. I think I was 7 years old, 6 years old, something like that. And I'm reading through it, And I sort of, you understand things. If you don't understand the words, you understand what's going on in the pictures, because that's the beauty of comics, is that it can tell stories on multiple levels,
Right.
verbally, visually, in many ways, and together, obviously. And so this book lived in the back of my car, and as a dumb little 7-year-old, I would, stand on it and stomp on it and, whatever, but it lived with me. And eventually my mother, who's very clean, got rid of it one day, but it stayed with me. That's what sparked everything. And from there, I would go and look for comics, because I knew there was something in them that was, beyond what I could understand at the time, but it was beautiful, and I knew it was beautiful, and I knew it was something more. And so I started, picking up stuff and reading, and then I picked up Swamp Thing later on, and read Alan Moore stuff, and as a 10-year-old kid reading Alan Moore, I'm all like, I don't know what none of this means. There's something to it, man. I gotta keep reading. And so, as I got older, I took trips to the library and went to the, okay, what does this word and this word and this word mean? I don't know what it means. And so I'd go to the librarian and I said, what does this mean? They're like, go to the stacks. I'm like, what are the stacks? That's where they have all our research material. What is research material? That's where we have all this information that you're looking for. All right, where is it at? Over there. Wow, it's dusty. They're like, yeah, people don't really use it. And so I would look at the dusty books and look up words and look up what this place was. And
for Alan Moore. All to understand what Alan Moore was saying.
Yeah, like a simple, 9-panel page with maybe 10 word balloons. I was like, I don't know what none of this means. But comics were my teachers. They were my friends. I was a sick kid. I spent, sometimes several months in the hospital because I had really bad asthma, terrible asthma, to the point whenever I got sick, I spent actually 2 months in the hospital one time. It was a terrible experience, but I had comics, and comics were my friends and my uncles, and because all the comic creators, those are my uncles, or my aunts as well, so growing up, Dick Giordano, that was one of my uncles, and Alan Moore, he was one of my uncles too, but he's one of the crazy ones, and
Uncle Wizard.
Uncle Wizard, there you go, absolutely. And it just, in my formative years, comics grew me into who I am today. And so that's why I've always loved comics. So now to the story of where the con comes from. I'm on the board of a place called the Fred Aguilar Promise Center, which is it's a 501c3 nonprofit community center. And Fred is our president. We named it after him a couple of years ago in honor of him. And he's a terrific guy. He's like the mayor of Baytown. Everybody knows him. And so because we did stuff for the community, and we have after school tutorials for kids, we do leadership camps in the summer for high school age kids. We have science camps or art camps in the summer for grade school kids. We have legislative updates where we have people from the legislature come and talk to folks, let them know what's going on. Backpack giveaways. We have poetry nights, Dia de los Muertos celebrations. We have concert series, we have bands come and play. Had a comic book symposium one time. This is before I knew y'all, otherwise y'all would have been there, where Richard Evans from Bedrock and several other people came out and talked about comics. And he brought, I don't know, $300,000 worth of comics and just put them it was in a box. And he's like, wow. You can, can we look at, you can look at them? Sure. Yeah. If you want, pull them out of the Mylar. I'm like, no, Richard, we're not going to. That's not happening, And it did. And he had an X-Men #1, and I touched it because I knew I probably would never touch an X-Men #1 again in my life. Wow. It was like, yeah, pull that one out. I was like, no, Richard, we're not pulling this one out. This one stays where it belongs, inside of the Mylar. No, but yeah. And so because we love comics, me and the vice president, Augustine Laredo III, who is one of my he's my brother. He's basically like my brother. Okay, we've known each other for years and years and years, and we've we're basically family. And we're both comic book heads, and we love comics. And I went to the show called the Son of Houston Con. Don Price runs it.
I used to that show was awesome. Have they kind of stopped doing the show, or are they on hiatus?
He's working. It's a hiatus. He's working on getting back together. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of work. And so I went to that, And I came back and I was like, if they can do a show, maybe we can do a show. And so that's basically what it started. And over here in Baytown, we have a moniker. We're called Dirty Bay. We're welcome to Dirty Bay. And so we had the Dirty Bay Eastern Rim Funny Book, the Dirty Bay Funny Book and Vintage Con. Okay. And that's what we called it at first. But there was a bar here called Dirty Bay. And when we had our show, people lined up at the bar.
Oh,
So we had to come up with a different name. And
right.
we kind of threw ideas together. And, I was thinking like Outer Rim or, the Eastern Con or something like that. And Augustine, basically my brother, he said, well, why don't we call it Eastern Rim since we're like on the Eastern Rim of Houston? I was like, oh, brilliant, terrific, And so all the pieces were there. He's the one who put it together. So that's why we're called what we're called. I will say this, though. We did it, and it was a terrific success. Anytime you have a small show, if you have 100 people come through the door, that's a big deal, okay? That particular day at where we were located at the time, which was this very long building, basically like a lumber yard. So it's very long and kind of wide. And so you can get all the pieces of lumber out or whatever.
Right.
And so we had enough space to set it up in there. And we had like 20 vendors. Okay. And I mean, like a whole bunch of people from all walks of life or whatever showed up. And it was really cool. And we had 150 people come through the door. We're like, wow, cool. So we did the next show, which was in April, I believe, because that one was in December. Changed our name. We became Eastern Rim Funny Book and Vintage Con. And that show, we had a whole bunch more people come. In fact, we had Richard Evans set up. We had a bunch of the folks that are with us to this day set up at that show as well. And it was a great show, and it was really cool. But we had about 450 people come through the door. And we're like, wow, we can't have it here anymore. It's not going to work here anymore. And it was packed all day. People were there. We had like cosplaying. We had panels. We had all kinds of cool stuff. And it was great. And we're like, okay, we got to figure something else out. And so we got with the city, and they threw some hotel motel funds at us. And that's money that they get from, like, there's an extra tax that they put on hotels and motels that we can use for things, for things to improve the city or to bring people in, that kind of a thing. And so they threw some money at us, and we were able to move it to Lee College. That's the one where we had it in 3 separate areas, not on purpose. We wanted to have it at the gym, but they had dibs on it before we did, so we had to move it to this location. And the last week of before the show, so that was a fun. I'll tell you that story later. Anyway, and that's where everything started, and in terms of the bigger situation, and that's the origin story of Eastern Rim and where we come from and what we do and how important this is to us, because when we were little kids, we didn't have any money. You know what I'm saying? Going to like the comic book store was a treat. For me, when I got comics, I got comics at the Stop and Go, at the Kmart, and luckily at a Food Town. I don't know if y'all have Food Town out there where you are. I know you don't, Ken, but Nico, you've heard of Food Town, I'm sure.
Oh yeah,
okay.
Yeah, we have Food Town. Mm-hmm.
So they must have bought like an old comic shop or something, because they had like these dozens of comics, and it was like two for $1. The stickers are still on there. I still have the stickers, and I would buy them, and I would like, okay, I have, a couple, I got $1 here in change, and I would buy 2 comics, and I would take them home and I would read them. And I was just like, wow, this is so cool. And I would buy as many as I possibly could, save my pennies and everything. But, but going to a comic book store, that was like, oh, there's no way. There wasn't any in Baytown to begin with, but it just wasn't something that was
were you
able to do. Go ahead.
In that like 90s comic boom, were you kind of into that, the bursting on the scene Image Comics type stuff? Were you kind of the guy that was like waiting in line at the comic shops for those releases, or were you kind of more, because you mentioned Giordano and guys like that, so, or were you more of like a older school guy?
Both. I felt okay. By that time, I was in high school, and my parents would give me like money for food for the week, and so I would eat like one package of Zingers and save the rest of my money. So I could go and buy comics, So like every day I would eat like a 75-cent packet of Zingers, and that was my lunch. And then I would go and take the rest of the money and buy comics. And so I would buy a lot of indie stuff. I bought a bunch of indie stuff, like like a lot of Dark Horse stuff, a lot of innovation, a lot of all the stuff like that, because that's the stuff I cared about. They were like, oh, this is a cool Tarzan comic, and it's like, okay, well, I could get X-Men, but this looks a whole lot cooler. I don't know what this is, or like you have this, just like weird stuff, crazy stuff that this shop for some reason happened to carry. I guess because they have the bit for that, and so I was introduced to a whole lot of really cool stuff. You know what I'm saying?
That's kind of interesting because your first book was Saga of Swamp Thing. I feel like that was like the germination of that. You started at like that weirder kind of horrified type of story, which kind of led you into that path instead of maybe going on like the big superhero type thing. So you're maybe more drawn to that. That's cool. It's cool to hear.
Yeah.
Right.
And like I said, and there was a shop in Baytown at the time, and that's where I went and spent my money, all my lunch money, and it was terrific. But there was stuff like came out. I collected the Wolverine, and I collected a bunch of stuff. And then when the Death of Superman came out, I was like, the guy was willing to do deals, so I was like, hey, can I buy 2 right now for later? He goes like, yeah, I'll. I'm sure he wanted to make get his pork chop money or something or whatever, because comics, you ain't getting rich off of that. And so I sold it. He sold it to me or whatever, and I saved the receipt. And thankfully, I had it in my pocket. I said, "Yeah, I need 2." He's like, "I don't know, man. I don't know if I was like." Okay, he's like, "Thank you."
Were you huge on that Death of Superman issue? Were you big on that thing? Because I've kind of revisited it lately, not lately, but kind of recently, and just the giant 1-page splashes after 1-page splash. Don't know if it holds up so well now that I look at it. But whenever I first read it, I was kind of like, "Oh, this is insane,"
Well, I'll say this: a lot of the comics that I grew up reading, that I thought were unbelievably profound as a kid, when you come back and read them, you're an adult, and these were written for kids. Our kids our age at the time, we were like 13, 14, 15 or whatever.
Right.
And it's definitely like that, like Death in the Family. Okay. Man, I was like, wow, when they revealed that the Joker was working with the Libyans or whatever it was, and I was like, wow, and I come back and I read it like 15 years later, I was like, this is how I remember it. It's not how it's not the same. It doesn't have the same impact on me. Well, maybe it's because I've grown and lived and stuff, but and it still has a place in my heart. I still love those comics. Those comics mean everything to me because they help to form who I am today. But dude, on the cool, all the dope comics that I read were always the indie comics. Those are the ones that always had the whenever Vertigo came out, because I was reading Vertigo before it was called Vertigo, obviously. But when Vertigo came out, dude, I was a Vertigo head, dude. I absolutely consumed everything that was Vertigo. Everything that they had, I bought, or that I could afford, could I say. Everything I could get, I would get. And, I didn't, I that and Milestone, which was the like Dennis Cowan and all the African-American creators and some of the Latino creators or whatever who were involved with that as well. Dude, so those are the ones that really bought.
Hardware is one of the
Icon.
sickest designs ever. Like, I still love that hardware design. So dope.
Static Shock is always my my bag.
Yeah, I was about to say you took the words right out of my mouth again. I was going to say and you're like Static Shock. I was like, there you go.
Yeah. And, no, Static Shock was definitely when it used to come on WB. That the animated series. That was my first introduction to him, and I was like, dude, this dude is sick as hell.
Well, I will say this: when I was reading Static from the very beginning, because I picked up all of them, like what is it? What's the name of the gang? Blood. What is it? I can't think of it.
I forget.
Blood Syndicate.
Blood Syndicate. There you go.
Yeah.
I picked up all of them, and when I read them, I was just like, oh my god, It's crazy. You know, I'm Latino. I was born in Guadalajara, Jalisco. I moved here when I was 5 years old, and my original language, my first language is Spanish. Okay, but when I saw people like me in the comics, and I was like, wow, there's comics with people like me in it. Because, you know, before that I was like Bruce Wayne, but I was like, no, he has dark hair like me, but he has blue eyes, so it's not like really me. It's kind of me, I guess. You know, definitely not Superman, because, you know,
Right.
he's you know, the same kind of a thing. Because to me back then it was like there was not a whole lot of representation. You know, I mean there was some, but not like the extensive amount that there is today, especially with Milestone for sure. And I was just like,
Right.
man, it was so cool, so dope. But yeah, but anyway, so all that Milestone, Vertigo, all the indie stuff that Dark Horse and those other folks were putting out, that was the stuff that I read that really formed, you know, who I was in terms of my comic book reading at the time. But, you know, like I said, I did collect Superman, I did collect Batman, you know, the what is it, the 10 Nights of the KG Beast or whatever.
Oh yeah.
That particular story was huge. You know, Brian Boland, oh my God, one of the best artists in the entire universe, you know. So yeah. So there you go. Hopefully that answered.
Nice.
Yeah, no, I think it's interesting how like your taste changes over time, you know, because I remember back when I was reading like, you know, the Spider-Man Todd McFarlane series, I was like, God, this is so like good and like seedy and gritty. Like, dude, I try to read those things now, and I'm like, dude, this is not good. and now like I'm, you know, but like the ones that are holding up are like the Vertigo things, like, you know, like you said, like Day Tripper is one of my absolute.
Oh yeah, that one's great.
It's in you know, in probably top 5 comics of all time for me. And it's so far left of like, or far right, whichever direction of, you know, a thing like Spider-Man. You know, it's so different from what my tastes were back then. It's pretty wild.
Well, when I picked up Sandman for the first time, so let me tell you that very quick story. This is much quicker than the usual. Okay, I abhor, like, I mean, I understand people do it all the time, and they take comics and they cut them up, and it hurts my feelings. But you know, I absolutely abhor that kind of thing. But I get it, people do it. I'm not, you know, more power to them, I guess. It hurts.
Yeah.
But ultimately, I'm the only transgression I've ever had in terms of comics was this one time. Okay, I was at B. Dalton Bookseller. I was in Austin at one of the malls, and I'm like looking at the comics. I can't afford anything, you know. I'm there, and they have this comic, and it looks interesting. It's like this, I think, like number 3 or 4 of the Sandman comic, though, whichever one that talks about the Green Hearts and the Aboriginal people or the African people are sitting in the middle of the desert or whatever it is, and they talk about what these things are, and so I look at the cover and it's like, what is this? What is this? And I start looking through it, and I'm like, okay. But I see this really super dope like ad for Batman, like some sort of like house ad or whatever, and it has Batman, and he has like this face. It's like it looks like something that you would see in an indie comic or in a horror comic. He has Batman, his face is dark, you can't really see like his skin, his eyes are dark, and he has like bullet holes, and there's like smoke coming out of him. Okay. And so I'm like, what is this? I need to have this. And so I had this plan, this really awful plan, where I would go and look at the comic, and I would tear just a little bit of it, and I would walk away. I'd come back and take some more, and I'd walk away. And I finally tore the whole thing out and stuck it in my pocket, and completely forgot about it for like a month or something, right? But it was super dope because I don't have no money. I can't afford the comic. All right, this is probably wrong and stupid, and I'll never do this again, but I have to have this because it has to come with me. So anyways, I stick it in my pocket, and I leave. Like I said, I forget about it for like a month or whatever, and you know, I finally discover it when I'm back in Baytown because I was with my cousins or whatever. And I'm looking at it, I'm like, man, this is dope. I love this. And then I turned it around, and there was this stuff, these characters talking to each other.
Oh, wow.
I didn't know what the hell they were talking about, but it was like, and I think I was like in 8th grade, 7th grade, 8th grade, something like that.
Yeah.
And I was like, what is this? Why do I love this so much? And I don't even understand it. After that, I was like, I gotta find this comic. And so eventually I did find it,
Hmm.
and I read it. And like, I gotta go from the beginning. I can't just start here. And so I start looking for it. So I read all the Sandman comics from that one, and then went back to number one and all the way through, and I have them. I have like several runs of it, because every time I would see it at like half price books, I'm like, oh, y'all have to come home with me because y'all can't
Yeah.
stay here. You belong to me.
Yep.
I don't know if y'all do that with comics or not. Like, if you see a comic that you like, oh, this
Most
is
of the time.
special comic, you got to come home with me.
It
You can't stay.
depends. Yeah.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
totally understand. Norman Brayfield, one of my favorite artists. I have like various, probably sometimes 10 copies of his comic, because if I see it somewhere, I'm like, all right, you're an orphan and I need to take care of you. Come on, there's a place for you in my house. And so I read that comic, and that one, Swamp Thing, Sandman, and Invisibles, and all Grant Morrison stuff, and famously, none of those three folks get along with each other very well. I think
Yeah.
Yeah.
Morrison and Gaiman are much better than Moore and Morrison. Those people, they don't like each other at all. But I will say this: reading Grant Morrison's stuff, their stuff was just tremendous. Reading the stuff from Moore, his stuff was tremendous. But Neil Gaiman's stuff flipped the script in my head.
Yeah.
I went and did research, like real, like not just like looking up words that I didn't understand with Swamp Thing, with more stuff, but like, what is this? Where does this come from? Is this a myth somewhere? And I would go to the library. I go to several libraries, and I ask them, what is this? Where can I find something on this? They're like,
Mm.
I don't know what that is. And so, this is before the internet. So, I'd go look in the stacks. I know the stacks. And so I'd go knock the dust off and pull out the books and look through. And sometimes I would find stuff, just snippets or whatever. And it once again, all those three guys are basically like my parents, my comic book parents, as it were. You know,
Right.
Yeah,
and
man. I think and like Gaiman stuff is so readable sometimes. It's comparatively to like Morrison or Alan Moore, his stuff it just it's eloquent, but it's like it's so readable. It flows so well. And
and
I
Right.
think that that's the thing, because sometimes like I love Alan Moore, but sometimes his stuff can just get twisted and a little wordy, and you
Dense.
understand. Yeah, dense is exactly what I'm looking for. Thank you, Ken. Very, very dense. But like with Gaiman, it's they have that that heartfelt that verbiage, all of that stuff in there, but you can it reads so well. So I kind of understand how like it. And it's interesting that the one page that you had didn't have dream, didn't have death on it. And that still captured you. That's wild. That's
and
just it's the effect of his greatness.
and that's the thing. It's like, and the art was part of that hook, because it was,
Mhm.
the characters were gangly and emaciated and earthy and alive in a way that dreams are alive.
Mm,
Right.
and
yeah.
and with the words connected to the image, I was like, man, this
Yeah.
is something else. I must find out what this is. And so I spent the rest of my life looking for it. I will say this, though, that ultimately, comics, being my teacher, being my friends, my uncles, my aunts, my cousins, whatever, however you want to look at it, it was also a way for me to mitigate the world, to understand how people work. You know, when you're reading like Gaiman, and you come across Cain and Abel, and that interpersonal relationship that they have, where one's a psychopath and the other one gets killed by the psychopath, but they're still like brotherly and love each other and care for each other. And it helps you sort of understand things better out in the world. And there's been so many people that I've run into, like, oh, okay, yeah, you're a Cain, you're an Abel, yeah, you're a Matthew for sure. You're a Matthew. Yeah, you're just not squawking, and that's the thing. One of the focuses of Eastern Rim that we're working on tremendously is a focus on literacy. That's one of the things. I was actually talking to some kids today at my school, because my school is going to be one of our sponsors or whatever, and we're telling the kids, look, man, literacy is hugely important. You know, where they're going to make, basically what's going to happen, they're going to make, like, we're going to make this comic, and they're going to have like these static characters in there with open word balloons, and the kids, we're going to have kids come in and make their own comic out of that. You know, take those static characters and write their story, and and so, and we're going to hopefully get some of the kids who are smart and know how to do computer stuff and turn them into GIFs. People say GIF, I say GIF because I'm old school and I'm a Generation Xer. Fight me.
I think it's
And-
GIF. I
yeah,
say GIF.
I say GIF. And so they're going to make some GIFs out of that, and so the kids can have something both physical and digital that they can take with them from the show. And like I said, it's something that, because like I said, comics led me into not just comics but literature and science and you know, like scholarly articles and all kinds of stuff, because that's the stuff that I read, you know. And ultimately for me, I want to be able to provide a space for kids to find maybe something like that for themselves.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's great.
Because I feel like very strongly that comics is like that door to the desire to want to understand more of your world and more of what's in the comic. So it's like it pushes you to go and seek out that information in other areas. And I felt that a lot with the Sandman series for sure, because he was using a whole bunch of words and like pulling from different myths that I was just like, okay, where's this coming from? Like, let me look this up online and see like what's he doing. I mean, we had internet, so we just like we were just looking up like, okay, cool,
Lucky. No, dude, for real. And when the internet came about, and you know, when it was all slow and clunky, but it was still faster than, you know, going to the library and asking the question, "Where is this? I don't know. Let's go look for it." Okay, and it was like a miracle. It was like like a miracle. Like, oh wow, loading. Oh, there it is. All right, go to this page. Okay, there's a sentence. It's better than, you know, just simpler and easier. But yeah.
right.
Jerry, I got a question for you. And
Okay.
I couldn't wait to answer this one or ask you this one whenever I thought about it. But you know, you spent your, you know, a lifetime reading comics and consuming comics and everything. And you know, we're the comics grind. We're, you know, we're focusing. You know, we focus on creating comics and all the trials and tribulations going on with that.
Before
Have
you
you
before you
ever?
continue, before you continue, let me say this. I love listening to y'all talk. I'm so enamored with this podcast, dude. Seriously, like when I'm working, because you know, with Eastern Rim, I'm working late nights and I'm working stuff out and stuff, and so sometimes I'm up until 4 o'clock in the morning. I throw on, you know, a couple of your podcasts and just listen, and it's just like so comforting and so cool to listen to
Dude,
people talk
thanks.
about comics. Just wanted to say that. Okay, go ahead, ask your question. I'll
Ah,
apologize.
appreciate you. Thank you for that.
Appreciate it. Yeah.
Um, So, with that said, you know, this being a creator focused thing, have you ever had the desire to make your own comics? You know, write, draw, or do you still dabble? Did you dabble before? And if you made some comics, I want to see some pictures of them. If you can supply that, but if
Oh
not, you could
yeah.
just describe them to us in gory detail, because
Oh, absolutely.
I would love to hear about, you know, your, you know, if you've ever had that creative passion, that creative itch. Did you ever get that, you know, until now?
Okay, yes. Since I was a kid, you know, with a pencil I found outside somewhere that I'd sharpen on the concrete so I could have, like, you know, something to write with, or draw
Nice.
with, or whatever. I always had a desire to make comics, and you know, when you're a kid, you know, like I would get like lined paper, you know, college ruler or whatever, and I would fold it in half. And I have a, I don't know where it is. It might still exist somewhere in my house. It might not. It might have evaporated into the ether or whatever. Like the comic gods were like, no, this can't exist anymore. Um, uh, I did attempt to create a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles comic, you know, where I did draw some stuff on there, not a whole lot. I never finished it, you know, because when I like when you're a kid and you're like, oh, this is cool, and then you go look at a comic, you're like, oh, this is trash. Like the comic is good and yours is trash. You're like, no, I drew trash. Never mind. But I've had that impetus for sure, to draw, and I've done some few things here and there, like every once in a while. Like in my head right now, I have two stories that I'm very interested in turning into a comic at some point in time. I'm not going to go into them right now just because I want to.
Yeah,
I'm still working on
sure.
them. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Still developing. But I do have two things that I do want to make into a comic at some point in time, and whether that's me, writing them and then drawing them horribly, or having some wonderful fellows like yourselves, or some wonderful folks putting in their terrific art to my words, that would be amazing at some point in time. But yeah, I definitely have done that. I have dabbled, and I have, every once in a while I'll draw something. I don't have anything at hand that I can show you. I did draw a Swamp Thing one time. This was years ago. And
Nice.
basically telling the story of my of me coming to comics. Give me a second. I might actually
That's
have
cool.
something I can show you.
Oh yes. First look
Yeah.
at Jerry's artwork.
Keep asking questions, and I'll see if I can pull it up.
So I mean, go ahead, Ken. You got one?
Oh no, I was just thinking about seeing what Jerry's gonna bring there. But yeah, it's just been a good conversation so far, and I don't know. I can't wait for Eastern Rim Con next week.
Oh yeah, Jerry. What who are some of your favorite all time creators? Let's start with like cartoonist guys, like guys that write and draw. Me and Ken are
Right.
cartoonists. We create our own stories from top to bottom. Who are some of all time great cartoonists?
Okay. I have a deep and profound love for Garfield, because
Okay.
Garfield
Yeah.
was a comic that was accessible to me as a kid.
Yeah.
Uh,
Same here.
yeah,
Huge. Jim Davis was actually so much more influential on my comics career than I really think about. Because honestly, could have been some of the first books I ever read. From back to front to back. Crazy.
absolutely. Um, then of course there's Sparky, which of course is all the Peanuts characters, and that's the what he preferred to be called, was Sparky.
Hmm.
Um, and
Charles Schultz.
like, yeah, literally, he
Oh
preferred to be
really?
called. Yeah, like people would like, I've seen like a bunch of interviews and stuff about people who met him, and like, hi, I'm Sparky. Like, Sparky, okay, cool.
All
Uh,
right.
but Schultz was a huge influence in terms of you know someone who created and wrote their own comic. It was so incisive and beautiful and eloquent, and encapsulated life in like two panels. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? Two
Yeah.
panels. It was just like, wow, that's a whole person's life right there. You know?
Yeah, big inspiration on me for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, you got another one in you? Another
Uh,
cartoonist?
Let me think.
Or just any creator, really. I mean, you kind of already mentioned Alan
Yeah.
Moore. I assume Stephen Bissett is up there because he was probably
Okay.
pretty influential on you
Yeah.
at that point.
That whole Stephen Bissett and John Tuttlebin, their art, like, oh, and I'm glad you mentioned that, because I drew the crap out of Swamp Thing. I mean, like, as soon as because I analyzed their art, I looked at their art like in detail and saw what they did, and attempted to copy it as best as I could, poorly. and I just would draw Swamp Thing and draw just like him standing there, the head, or him reaching out or whatever. I have those somewhere. I don't know where they are. They're deep in the bowels of the house somewhere. But I had those, and they were super important to me. And his art style was just gorgeous, and I was just like, man, this is, as far as I'm concerned, it was fine art to me. It was right up there with like Monet and Rembrandt and Degas, these Andy Warhol, all that stuff.
I mean, the thing that always got me with Bassett was like the panel design, man. I mean, you look at some of those pages and they're just so far out and so different. Especially like, I mean, this book was coming out in what, mid '80s? Was Alan Moore's run?
It started in '84, and I think he stopped his run at like '87, '88, '89, right around there.
I mean, he was just doing some absolutely influential and like just different stuff that's
Yes.
probably influences a lot of us to this day, just because of the people who influenced him in terms of like just different panel designs.
Right.
But yeah, fine art, like totally, you can see a fine art sensibility, in those pages.
Mm-hmm. And the thing is this, is that like, well, in particular, here, let me sort of do this. So we have our fine artist, which is
I should have wore mine. What am I thinking?
Oh, you're good, bro. You're good. Mark Nelson. He is an absolute fine artist, and he does our art every single year. Every piece of art that we have up there since the last 2.5 years has been his, and it's just marvelous, gorgeous stuff.
Oh yeah.
So speaking of art, I actually found the
here we go. First look.
Okay.
First look into.
And it's layered and it's detailed. There's a bunch of stuff, and in the center there's the story of me reading the comic or finding the comic in the car. So.
Oh yes, dude.
Whoa.
Dude, look at all those details, man.
Yeah.
Dude, that is sick. Did you?
Are we able to make his screen the biggest?
Oh man, possibly, but wouldn't know how to see. Does this do anything? Nope.
That made your screen the biggest.
Let's see. No, not sure how to do it quite yet, but I think, I think we can see it, man. That's dope, dude.
Yeah, you did draw the hell out of it. Dang.
Yeah. So there's a.
How long did that take you?
Like altogether, probably about 30 hours.
Okay.
And when I say that, I know y'all know what I'm talking about. I told that to people, like 30 hours straight. No, not 30
Oh, you said 30 hours?
30 hours.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Wow. Yeah.
30 hours of just like a day and a half of just drawing.
Yeah. People are like, 30 hours. Like, but no, it was in pieces, here and there. And I had an opportunity. Y'all know exactly what I'm talking about.
Right.
But yeah, dude. Here, let me.
That's dope, dude.
Let me show you one piece that I'm particularly proud of.
Oh, yeah.
One part of it, should I say? Let's see if you can. So I have like little faces built into it.
Oh, dude, that's dope.
Down the side.
So the piece of paper in the middle, that you said that was your first.
That was the story of me finding the comic.
Oh, okay.
The one I related to you earlier.
Gotcha. Cool, man.
Yeah.
Super cool piece, Jerry. Dude, I appreciate you showing us here.
Yeah,
absolutely, man. Thank you. Yeah. Thank you for the warm reception. I mean, I looked at him like, oh God, I did that. Wow.
Oh, that's awesome.
No, that's like what I call, or what me and Nick would call a genuine, like I don't know how to describe it. It's like a genuine intention, like a genuine piece of art where it's just like you got so lost in the detail and wanting to convey your idea that it doesn't matter like how professional it looks. It's just such an authentic expression. That's what we call it, an authentic expression, that it just, you can tell how much love and energy was put into the art just off of the detail that was in it. 30 hours is almost like immaterial. It doesn't, like, the time that it took doesn't even matter, because it was just like, okay, this is something special.
Oh, I appreciate that. Thank you, man. Thank you, guys. And it was important to me. It was something that I had to get out. and I hadn't, like, up to that point I hadn't drawn in probably like 10 years or something, and it was just like, no, I need to tell this story. This is something that's important to me.
Right.
But yeah, thank you.
That's
Thank you.
fantastic.
Yeah.
Jerry, just to kind of like one of the last questions here for you.
Sure.
I kind of want to just kind of get your take. You've been going to conventions for a while now. You're putting on your own conventions now. Like in your opinion, how do you think Comic Cons have changed over the years? Reason I ask that is because I've been going to a lot more conventions lately. Um, some of them are very hit or miss. Some of them are so pop culture centric that the comics themselves get drowned out. That's why a show like yours is so refreshing because you still have pop culture, you still have voice actors, you still have guys like that, but you focus on the comics. In your opinion, kind of maybe talk a little bit about how you've kind of seen the convention scene change over the last handful of years or decade.
All right. So when I first started going to conventions, it was Comic Palooza, back when it was just in part of the George R. Brown, not the whole thing. Like
Mm.
like I think it was the second floor actually. I don't know. I don't think it was the first floor, and it was just like just a chunk, and it was fine or whatever. And I don't know, maybe it was I think maybe it had like part of the first floor and some of the second floor, but all I know is that it was a very different thing, much more comics focused at the time, and it was like the Wild West, like
Mm.
specifically Comic Palooza. It was very like things kind of just popped off and happened, and people were kind of doing stuff, and so they would have a panel at 1 o'clock in the morning.
Oh wow,
Like,
really?
yeah,
Wow.
oh yeah, dude.
1
Like
o'clock in the
there's
morning?
crazy stuff,
Interesting.
like crazy discussions going on, and sometimes you'd have to like make sure you're 18 years old to be able to enter this discussion or whatever.
Right.
Or they would have like just like it literally up until like I've often for 2011, 12, and up until 13, leaving out of there at 2 o'clock in the morning was a normal time for me to leave, just because they would always have the cool stuff at the end, and I
Mm.
Wow.
experienced all of that.
So it was very unstructured back then.
Yes,
Mm.
absolutely. Like I
Right.
said, I'll put it to you this way: I'm standing in a line to, or no, I'm standing to go into. They had all the panel rooms like
Mhm.
cordoned off with pipe and drape off to the other side or whatever. So it was a kind of not a great strategy, because people would talk and people could hear, and it was loud, and everyone got on top of everyone. Anyways, so I'm sitting there, waiting to go into the tent area is kind of what it looked like, and somebody comes up behind me and puts something to the back of my head, and they're like, "Listen, MFer, you better blah 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 blah," and I'm like, okay, either this is real or it's someone losing their mind. And they're like, "Tim?" I'm like, "No, it's Jerry." And they're like, "Oh crap. My friend. Oh man." And they it wasn't like a real gun or whatever, but like that stuff doesn't just happen like on the floor. People don't do stuff like that. And they just came up and just, put the fake gun to the back of my head, and were like, "Come on, man, blah blah blah." I'm like, "Okay, cool.
Wow.
This is where we
Jeez.
live." Yeah, like I said, it was very unstructured, kind of crazy, but it was fun. I mean,
Yeah.
like they used to say about like San Francisco in the '60s, like you could spark off anything in different places, and things would happen, and people would gather, and really cool things occurred, and really crazy things occurred. But it was very very Wild West.
Mm.
I will say this in terms of going to the cons since then, it was always very homogenous. Okay, not a whole lot of black folks at all. Like a handful of Latinos. It was mostly white folks who were there, and fine, whatever. It is what it was.
You're talking
Mhm.
about like guests, like
No,
artist wise, or
no,
just like
I'm talking about
attendance?
the attendance.
Okay.
You know, but as soon as things started popping off, like Black Panther, or things like that,
Mm.
there was an increase of people of color who were there at the shows, and it was so cool to watch it because I literally watched it occur. I literally watched it happen from being like 85%, Anglos to being like 40% Anglos. And it's about, I wouldn't say 50-50, about 30 to 40% now to the different shows I go, but there's definitely more people, more representation. And that's one of the things that I've noticed that have changed over the years, over the last 10 years. And I thought that was a really cool thing because, like I said, when you see yourself in something, it means something to you and you want to be a part of it, And I think that was a very, very important thing for comics and for the comic book shows. Now, in terms of going from comic focused shows to pop culture shows, that's the thing that really has changed in my opinion in terms of how shows are set up. Comic Palooza was a comic book show. They had other guests there, but it was a comic book show focused on comics, and it was terrific. It was great. I loved it so much. Going there and meeting all these. That was the first place I met Nick. Was at the show. And actually, I have a really cool story about Nick Patera and Comic Palooza and the show. I went there. I didn't have a whole lot of money left at the end of the day, but I met him and he was really nice. And I was just like, hey man, he's like $5 for it was Red Wing. I don't know if you remember that or not. Yeah. And he was like it's $5 for the comic and I'll draw a little thing on there for you. And I was like, oh man, I only got 3, man. And I was about to walk away. So I'll take 3. It's like, okay. Well, I'm gonna owe you those $2, Nick Patera. Cool. And then when the one that he did with Hickman,
Manhattan Project.
Manhattan Project, yeah.
They had now this was at the old Bedrock before they moved across the street to the bigger one. Okay, the main Bedrock over there on Westheimer, and they were doing a thing, and they had Nick there, and he was signing and doing stuff. So I was like, oh, here's my opportunity. So I show up. I'm like, hey, Nick, you remember me? I was like, oh, yeah, I think so. I was like, hey, man, here's your $2. And he was like, oh, you're that dude. I'm like, yeah, dude, I'll remember this. This is important, man. That's a big deal, man. I appreciate that. I'm like, no, man. And you know how Nick is like, oh, yeah, man, I really appreciate it, man. Thanks a lot. Oh, yeah, man, that's really cool. Nick. Yeah. And I gave him the $2 and we struck up a friendship there. And, we've been, very, very, friendly ever since, and he's a great guy. Like he'll like text me in the middle of the night. He's like, hey man, I want to tell you some cool stuff, and he would tell me cool stuff. I'm like, oh my god. And I was able to see a lot of the stuff for Axe Wielder John, a little bit earlier or whatever, because he's getting my opinion and stuff about some things, and it's just the coolest. And like I said, Nick is that's one of the greatest guys, dude. I love him so much, and he's terrific. But dude, the progression of the shows going from comic book focused to being more pop culture focused has been something that has eaten at me for a long time. And one of the reasons we do Eastern Room the way that we do is because we want to bring it back, the comic book focus, because that's what a comic book show is about. And we do have, like I said, we do have Michael Winslow. I don't know if you remember him or not. He's the man of 10,000 sound effects, and from the Police Academy movies and stuff. So, he's there, and people always ask, well, why do you have guys like that? I said, well, we're the Eastern Funny Book and Vintage Con, so we got to have vintage folks, because we had Michael Chambers last year, Turbo from Breakin', and we want to continue that sort of that cycle and bring folks like that if we can. And we're just very excited about that. But in the end, what are we? We are the Eastern Rim Funny Book and Vintage Con. Funny books first, comics first. And that's the thing about a lot of these shows that aren't comics focused or comics related. They might have 1 or 2 or 3 comic book guests. I'll leave it at that. I'm not going to go any further than that. But, we want to have as many as we can. Indie folks, we bring folks who, like, actually, I haven't announced this yet, but I'll say it here on the show. We have 2 young artists that are coming to the show that we featured on our main page or whatever, on our the front of our flyer, because we really want to bring those folks in to have that experience. And they're 2 young women who are super smart and super dope, and they have some super dope comics, and they are gonna really just rock it. And we're gonna put them in there in Artist Alley with the rest of the artists, and we want to have them have that experience, because it's super important and super terrific to be able to bring these folks up. Like Wu-Tang says, Wu-Tang's for the children. Eastern children too, man. We want to bring up these new artists and these new folks, introduce them to folks, and have them hang out and talk with these terrific artists. Meet Jay Lee, meet Mark Nelson. Meet these folks and be a part of the show in a way that maybe they can make a contact. Maybe they make a connection, something that'll help them in the future, because both of them are working artists, I believe. One of them I know for sure. The other one, she does a lot of stuff like that. But one of them is literally a working artist who just graduated from college and is looking to get assistance, and not assistance, but looking to make connections so that way that she can continue her art process, as a job.
Right.
No,
Are they local?
That's fantastic.
One of them is in Austin, and one of them I think is in Houston. So they're not from Baytown, but the one is in Austin actually was from Baytown, and I knew her through school. She was not one of my students, but one of the students who was was at the school that I was at, and I had a comic book club for a while, and had kids come and show their stuff or whatever. Anytime I would have an opportunity to have comic stuff, I would do it. And so, I saw her stuff, and it was just tremendous. And I was just like, I was able to get in. She sent me a graduation notice like this year, and I was like, okay, I know she's doing all this art stuff, so I'm gonna bring her to the show, because I really want to be able to have these kids be a part of something bigger and more important. And I'll go ahead and give me 2 seconds here.
No, that's fantastic. I mean, I love that you're trying to kind of facilitate the community of artists too. It's certainly we love the big names, but the heart of comics are the people who are just have an idea, start freaking drawing a comic, and it's awesome having those people there too.
Yeah.
Let me say their names real quickly. It's Skylar Newton and Mina Baldwin. And I haven't released those yet, but it's all good. I can say it here. It'll probably
this episode will come out in week and a half or so from now. So
right.
We'll be good. Yeah, for sure.
Cool.
That's fantastic, Jerry. Yeah.
And like I said, it's we've done it before. We had some folks at the one at Lee College that wasn't at the library. I mean, in the gymnasium, the one before y'all were there. And we had some folks who are young artists and that same type of thing. And it's something that we want to continue to do and bring out, because it's important to us. And in the end, if we don't put a hand down to help people up, no one's going to do it. When people say, I'm pulling yourself up by your bootstraps, I mean, that's an interesting metaphor. I get it and everything. But if you literally pull yourself up by your bootstraps, you're just lifting your foot up off the ground.
Yeah.
It's true.
I mean, and then you let go and it falls back on the ground. Right. But if you put your hand down to people and help them up, you're actually doing something. It's not just lifting your foot up. You're actually lifting people up. And I always say we stand on the shoulders of giants, on the shoulders of titans, because someone was there before me. They helped me up. I'm doing the best I can to help others up. And hopefully they'll do the same and help others up after that. And with that, we'll have these artifacts of assistance and growth that allow people to understand that if I can do it, you can do it too. And in fact, let me see what I can do to help you.
Yeah. No, for sure. I mean, that's so respectable, especially in like the creative community. I mean, now there's just so many people out there doing awesome stuff, and sometimes it's hard to, get to that next level or make that next step. So, people like Jerry Shafer are helping the small folk out.
Yeah. I've always gotten that sense from Jerry since the first time I came out to the Eastern RimCon.
Well, to me, y'all are the giants of the industry as far as I'm concerned, because in the end, everything, sure, we're bringing all these cool folks and it's awesome, but, y'all are the pillars of the community here in Houston. And so y'all are the shoulders, the giant shoulders that the rest of us will stand on. And I can't thank you all enough, for doing that. I mean, like I said, you're just doing your thing, and that's amazing. But here's the thing: y'all serve as inspirations for the ones who are coming up after y'all. And with that in mind, people will remember you, remember your art, your comics, your writing, and be like, man, that was a very important stepping stone and formation into who I was as an artist and a writer. And it's Ken and it's Nico and Justin and Milton and all these guys who set this up, and they're the local heroes, and they're the ones who inspire to be like.
Dude, wow. I think with that, we need to cap this episode off, because that was the perfect boost of confidence Ken and I need to make some more awesome comics, right?
Absolutely.
For sure.
Jerry, man, thank you so much for joining us. This was such an awesome conversation. Love talking comics, convention life with you. Let the good people out there know one more time, when is Eastern Rim Con? Where is it? All those good details.
Okay. So Eastern Rim Funny Book and Vintage Con, August 19th and 20th at Goose Creek Memorial High School in Baytown, Texas. It's going to be Saturday the 19th from 10 to 6, and Sunday the 20th from 11 to 4. Free to get in, free to park. And we're going to have tremendous artists and guests, both national and local. We're going to have some really, really terrific vendors, a lot of comic vendors. Okay.
Yeah,
so bring your money, man. Bring your money, because it's going to be some cool stuff here.
Yeah,
let's go scroll through. Let's go to the bottom for right now.
The bottom?
Yeah, to the bottom. Well, not all the way. Go up. One more right there. Okay. Let me go over these guys. Go
All
back, go down a little bit. There you go. Tahani Farr, she is an export from Britain to Mexico. She is a tremendous, beautiful artist. She creates such beautiful art, and she's awesome. Okay, let's go to the next one really quickly. And of course, Lobos, that dude is dope as hell, dude. That guy just makes the most beautiful art, and he's such a nice guy, such a good, awesome guy. Once again, thanks Tony Wilson for helping us hook up with all that. You're the best, dude. Thank you so much.
Nice.
All right, let's go to the next one.
Very nice.
Man, Michael Winslow, the man of 10,000 sound effects. That dude has been in everything and all sorts of Hollywood stuff. He was some of the voices in Gremlins, and he was, on Family Guy, Police Academy, Spaceballs, for the love of God, man. And he is, once again, also talked to him on the phone for a little bit. Super nice guy, super great guest.
That's awesome.
Awesome.
Mike Grell, legend, Green Arrow, Warlord, Sable. I mean, and he's also a great guy. He has cool stories and great things to say. Such a great guy.
Nice.
Jay Lee, dude, super wonderful gentleman.
Whoa.
Transformative in terms of art. When his stuff first came out, everybody was like, what is this? How does this work? And once again, just like I said, a true gentleman, a true good guy, awesome and lovely person, lovely guy.
Jay Lee is insane. I have an action figure of his version of Superman. So it's like all angular and everything, just like how he drew, exactly like that. It's freaking dope, dude.
Dude.
It's awesome.
It's amazing.
Nice.
And then of course, David Lloyd, man, the master of the delicate, of the inspirational, of the ambiguous and wonderful fellow. Truly honored to have him. And like I said, V for Vendetta, man. That's all I can say. V for Vendetta. I mean, that's not only has it transformed comics, but it's transformed society.
It seriously has. I mean, that mask is universal.
Yeah, it is.
Oh, yeah.
It's a language. I mean, it's dude.
It is a language.
So
You're
pumped.
right. It's a language. It is an absolute language. You're right.
Yeah.
And here's
David
the thing
Lloyd
about
created a language. Yeah.
and here's the thing about it. The subtlety of his art mixed with the profundity of the subject matter and how delicate he was in terms of addressing the horrible things that happen in this comic, really gives it a level of fine art, as far as I'm concerned, of fine art that it's hard to find in comics these days,
Yeah.
or any day, honestly.
Yeah.
And
No, just a note on that. I saw that there's like a 30th anniversary version hardcover of V for Vendetta that DC Black Label just put out. Buy that thing, get it signed.
there you go.
Let's
There you
go.
go. And I will say this, in
Nice.
terms of the mask, I actually have the mask, the hat, and the hair, and I have it set up in my classroom at school, on my back. I was hoping this would happen with the infinite background. On one of my shelves, because it's a big important thing to me, and I actually have that poster on my wall as well. So I it's a comic that, once again, lives by my bedside, on my bookshelf, that I see every day, that I go to school, and it's on my wall, and it's there, and it's something that is super meaningful. So, like I said, whenever I fanboyed out and I was all like, "Oh, Mr. Lloyd, thank you, sir, I appreciate it, the best," and then continued with the business. But yeah, dude, and man, thank you for having me on. Thank you for doing this. Thank you for promoting comics, and for promoting yourselves as comic book creators, because, once again, this is the way that people can see themselves in these comics and in this process, and they know that if you can do it, they can do it too, man. Thank you.
Thanks, Jerry. Appreciate that, man. Everybody, you better get your ass to Eastern Rim Con, because it's going to be dope. Come and check us out. Come check out all the guests. Come check out Ken and I. We're going to be there. Ken, let the good people out there know where they can find you.
Y'all can find me on Twitter at @TheComicKen. I'm on there every day pretty much. And you can also find me on Instagram at ComicKen. And then I have my webcomic, Air Rider High School Hero, on Global Comics. All the links will be in the description.
And it's super dope. It's super dope, man.
There you go.
Appreciate it.
You got the stamp of approval from Jerry. So it's awesome. And you guys can find me at Nico_Writes on Instagram. The same thing on Twitter. You can also follow me on my Substack at nicorodriguez.substack.com. Catch us at Eastern Rim. We're going to be there. Come and give us a chat. But thank you so much for joining us this week, and we will see you next time.
Peace.